This is the first account of my story that I've submitted anywhere. I know no sleep is probably not the best place, but what the hell, it's not like telling anyone will change anything anyways. It started when I was 13. The night was a Thursday, during our school holidays, and I was at my friend Sophie's house for a sleepover. After some hours of movies, and a never-ending supply of chocolate, we decided to go to bed. The thing about Sophie's house is that they have a serious lack of spare mattresses, and since Sophie's bed was a single, I was forced to sleep in their spare room. I changed into my pajamas, and after brushing my teeth, went to sleep on the sofa bed in the spare room. I slowly drifted to sleep to the sound of crickets outside. 2 a.m. I jolted awake, disturbing the covers and shaking the bed. At first I was awfully confused. Normally, when waking from a nightmare, the memory will linger on for a moment, giving me a chance to realize my situation, but this time it was different. The bed was sunken to my right and a cold body pressed against my entire right side. I could just see the outline of a figure lying next to me. I noticed the dead silence. No crickets.
Sophie, is that you?
A minute passed with no response. Scenarios ran through my head. Sophie is trying to scare me. The dog has jumped in next to me. It's a man, here to kill me. A ghost? A zombie? As my thoughts turned darker, I became progressively more terrified. That's when it started breathing. A deep, heavy breath. In. Silence. A long breath out. Silence. And this continued. For what felt like hours I laid there, paralyzed with mortifying fear, staying as still as humanly possible. The most unnerving part was how perfect this breathing was. Every time it sounded the exact same. Every time I felt the whole bed move as it filled its lungs with oxygen, and felt it shrink back as it emptied them. I shut my eyes and did not open them for the entirety of that night. I didn't sleep that night. When the sun finally began to rise, it stopped breathing, and upon opening my eyes, I found a complete absence of the figure sleeping beside me just moments before. After a few moments of contemplation, I screamed, and did not stop until 20 minutes after. This all started on April 3rd, 2011. If that means anything, I haven't been able to make any correlations. Anyways, that week I refused to sleep alone. I slept with my parents every night, and this was quite effective. No cold, breathing mass sleeping next to me for a single night that week. The problem arose when my parents decided that I needed to get over my little phase. They forced me to sleep back in my own room, persuading me, with a false sense of safety, claiming it was a hallucination. 2 a.m. I woke, but this time I was immediately aware. The sudden flood of fear turned to anger, and I screamed as loud as I could. In the distance, I heard my parents rustling out of the bed, yelling at me that they were coming. That was when it woke. Its breathing that I could still hear above all the commotion stopped, and it soundlessly climbed out of my bed, gliding as if it were a shadow. All other sound was drowned out, and I heard only the ringing in my ears as I perceived it turn its body towards me. I don't know what happened after that. My memory was of a cold, black silence. My parents said I was having a seizure, first I ever had. Since that night, I've been sleeping with anyone I could, my younger sister, friends, or my parents. But I messed up. I hit someone on the road last week, and I was over the limit. 4 years sleeping in a cell with no human by my side. Being in the same room isn't enough. Trust me, I've tried. I guess this is it. Thanks Reddit for being a wonderfully toxic place. If this ever happens to any of you reading this, just pray you meet someone, anyone, who is happy to sleep next to you for as long as you live, or descend into insanity as a mass of death visits you in your sleep every night for the rest of your life. This happened a few years back when I was just done high school. I was 18 years old, working at a disclosed fried chicken chain restaurant. It was in the middle of summer, and I was earning a little cash for my tuition for college. One evening, I was working alone because my manager and my coworker left early and put me in charge of the place for the rest of the night. Time went by quickly because there weren't many customers anymore, so I ended up playing on my phone. By the time it was 5 minutes before closing, I started putting up chairs and tidying up a bit. Out of nowhere, the bell rang, indicating that a customer had entered. I looked behind me and saw a sloppy, middle-aged man as if he came from a bar. He was clearly on something because of the odd and strange stench of his mouth when he spoke. "What's a pretty little girl doing here?" he asked. I simply ignored him and told him that we were closing soon and to get the hell out of here. He didn't take that well and approached me. "What do you want?" I asked, trembling. "Come on, baby. I just wanted to get some food and maybe your number." I looked back at him, shocked and uncomfortable. I held on to my broom tightly and quickly told him to back off or I'll call the cops. He looked back at me, surprised, but still his grin hanging on his face. Shortly after, he left the store and I quickly followed behind to lock it. Minutes passed when the phone rang. Wondering whether it was my manager, I picked up and asked, "Who is it?" On the other end, a deep, masculine, aggressive male voice. "Hey, can I get an order of small fries? Please and thank you." Knowing that it was almost closing time, I decided to put him on hold and ask my manager whether or not to take up his order. I told him to hold and called my manager's cell phone. She told me that if I needed the extra cash, then I can take the order and get the tip. After my manager told me that, I quickly hung up and continued speaking with the customer on the other line. I agreed to take his order and proceeded to prepare his order. I jumped in my car and headed straight to the address he told me. It was only a few minutes before I arrived in front of his house and noticed that all the lights in the house were completely and utterly turned off. I thought to myself whether or not he gave his correct address or if it was some kind of cruel prank. Since I didn't have his phone number on my phone, I decided to knock on the door. What's the worst that can happen? I asked myself. The door slowly began to open and I looked down to see a small little girl in ragged clothing, about the age of 6, staring at me. She appeared to have various bruises all over her arms and legs. I didn't know what to do at this point, so I simply asked, "Is there an adult in this house?" She looked terrified and quickly ran away like a stray cat. I was waiting for a good 2 minutes until the same man from earlier this evening slowly came out of the shadows within his house. "Come in, darling. I need to count my change, so it might take a while. Please make yourself at home," he said. I looked at him shocked, as if he didn't recognize me from earlier. Before any longer, I threw the order of fries in his face and quickly ran into my car and drove off. Soon after, I called the cops and told them everything that had happened, and fortunately, the next day he was arrested on the charges of domestic violence. So this happened when I started doing overnights at big box stores that were in liquidation. It's very common to have the liquidation managers hire on additional help to manage and move a store's merchandise, but it was going to be an easy job. I've done similar work before,
and the fact that it would be overnights meant I would have a part of my day free, just to lounge around smoking pot and playing Skyrim. My first few nights were a bit rough. I still wasn't used to having my sleep schedule switched around, and spent a few shifts barely awake. I would have my headphones in while I moved around stocking shelves with boxes from the back. I usually played my music loud, so I wouldn't feel as drowsy, but that didn't always work. I was stocking shelves in the health and beauty section, moving bottles of aftershave from boxes to shelves. It was a bit mind-numbing at times. I had just put the last few bottles on the shelf when I saw a black shape move in the peripheral vision to my right. I turned and looked, but saw nothing. I took one of my earbuds and listened for footsteps, but there were none. I shrugged it off as one of my coworkers just walked past the aisle and went about my usual shift. Now, a few more strange things happened that night. We were tearing up old shelving units and would find things underneath them. It was usually trash, old flyers, price tags, but occasionally it would be something cool like an old video game or packs of trading cards. But as we were taking apart one particular shelf, we found a notebook and some old food wrappers. We looked through the notebook's pages and found that it was an old log from the LP department from 5 or so years ago. The pages mentioned that a homeless man had broken into the store 3 times by jimmying the loading bay door, but the cops got him the first 2, and the last time he was gone before they arrived. We put the log in the manager's office, and all of my coworkers went to grab food at a local gas station. I didn't go since I wanted to get more of my work done, and went back to the health and beauty. As I approached where the cart of boxes were, I was hit with an overwhelming smell of stale urine and aftershave. I looked into the aisle I had been previously in, and saw that 3 bottles of aftershave had been poured all over the floor with footprints leading to the back room. I was pissed. I just had spent 20 minutes earlier that shift working on this, and now it was all over the floor. I followed the footprints into the back of the store. The storeroom was freezing. I looked over to the loading bay door and it was open. Fuck. I'm the only one in the building. My coworkers are a 10-minute drive from the store, and now it has become pretty clear that someone is in the store that shouldn't be. I announced my presence to whoever had come in and told them that I would be calling the cops if they did not leave immediately. I heard nothing in response. I reached into my pocket to pull out my phone, but when I did, I heard the sound of metal hitting metal. I almost jumped out of my shoes. This wasn't like something falling off a shelf. It sounded malicious. I started to type the numbers for the police station when I heard the same crashing noise behind me. I turned around as another crash echoed through the air. I saw someone move from one pile of boxes to another. Fuck this, I thought to myself as I bolted to the door that led back into the store. I heard boxes behind me push to the floor and heavy footsteps following me. I ducked behind a display and went for my phone again, only to find it was gone. I must have fucking dropped it when I ran. The sounds of heavy footsteps went from the door up and down the aisles and around in circles. I was trying to keep as quiet as possible, but that familiar smell of filth, piss and aftershave hit me in the face again. He must have been within 5 feet of me on the other side of the display. I could hear him breathing. It sounded like someone with a severe chest cold. It sounded like his lungs were filled with water. Each breath sounded muffled but angry and putrid at the same time. The telling sounds of his steps once again began to get distance as he shuffled back into the storeroom. I saw my chance and took it, running my fat ass as fast as I could to the front desk and calling 911. The cops arrived no much later than 5 minutes, and they began searching the building. My coworkers also arrived back from their lunch to see me sitting on a bench talking to a police officer. The manager said I looked white as a ghost. After the police searched the building, they didn't see whoever it was that chased me, but they had found that the lock was jimmied again, and several boxes of merchandise were smashed with what seemed to be a metal pipe. They also found my phone, which was smashed into the side of a shelf, reeking of aftershave. He broke my phone. Soon after this incident, they put a stop on working night shifts until they could hire a full-time security company to oversee the store. I still don't like working there at night. It still feels unsettling, and I don't put my headphones on anymore.
I'm not sure where to turn, or really what is even happening, but I've noticed you guys are very helpful, so here I go. Something very strange is happening to me in my home. When we first moved, John had a few strange experiences. He brushed them off rather easily, but told me they freaked him out at the time. Doors had locked themselves, tools moved, and that sort of stuff. Oh, and when he was refinishing the floors, he found a rather large black diamond-shaped impression under an old carpet in the living room. Though he got rid of it and the floor looks great, we were both a tad freaked out by that diamond. It was obviously done on purpose, so I googled diamond shape and the occult, but didn't really find anything. And then the neighbor lady came over to introduce herself. Lovely woman. She loved Lucy, but I noticed she did not go past the front entrance. So the usual blah 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 went on when neighbors are meeting each other, and suddenly she raised her eyebrows and sheepishly asked about that diamond. Okay, what the hell? We told her we had seen it but had sanded it out of the floor, and you could never tell it had been there. Let me tell you, it was very awkward after that. She looked horrified and made a quick excuse to get the hell out of there, and she never came back. Soon, however, all of that was forgotten, and life got a little rough when my grandma's son found himself dying with nowhere to go. So you guessed it, he came to our house to die. Kidney failure is a hard way to go out, but we were glad the cantankerous ass could be with family. We paid for the funeral, and then a cremation, because Grandma wanted him all laid out for a funeral, and the uncle had requested to be cremated. His ashes now reside in our home. Soon life went on again, and my grandma fell and had all kinds of issues, and we were and are consumed by them. Tensions were and are high in my household because caretaking a 90-year-old woman with dementia who can't do anything for herself does that. It's really good at it. Grandma is a tough old broad who will go when she is ready, but she is at that point she thinks there are big fires outside her bedroom window at night, and she repeats her cat's name over and over and over pretty much all day long. I'm giving you all this information because it might be important to what is happening to me. John and I sleep downstairs. It is finished with a bathroom, laundry room, workroom, then garage. John and I take turns sleeping upstairs on the couch because Grandma wanders so much. Lately, I have been downstairs because the couch is really hard on my hips. It always starts right when I lie down and close my eyes. After about 2 minutes, someone starts walking around the bed. When this first started, I would open my eyes expecting to see John, but he was never there. I brushed it off at first, but about the third time it happened, I was so freaked out I quit opening my eyes and tried to ignore it. Then about 2 weeks ago, I was downstairs, just getting a grandma break, laying on my stomach on my bed, wide awake mind you, and I felt a really cold hand grasp my foot, and it waited until I turned to look to let go. This has happened several times now, and I am getting really freaked out. I really need to know what to do, or who can help me with this. What is this? Why is this happening to me? Is it possibly something medical? I'm worried about what is coming next.